Hello, 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 friends. Good morning. My spectacles. There. All right. Another day, another Dharma. So, welcome wherever you are. Scotland, the Netherlands, Hawaii, Croatia, Touraine, Brussels, Manchester, Cornwall, here and there. Ottawa. Wow. It doesn't get old, the miracle of us being together like this across time and space, and yet, it's that reminder. Our teachings point out to us that presence, the immanence of awareness, cuts through time and space. And that means presence, here-ness, it doesn't have any edges. Right? Where's the edge of here? And I mean, just experientially, if you're sensing to being here, the sense of here, has no distinct edge, no distinct center. It just actually is expansive in both directions. Outwardly expansive here, inwardly expansive here. The sense actually, everything is here. And then presence transcends the three fields of time as well. Whereas we talk about past as if it's gone and future as if it's yet to come, but actually any memory of past we have, where does it arise? Here. You can't actually go to the past, right? But the past arises here. The future arises here. So in a very real way, all experience, all sense of difference of time, all sense of measurement of space, it's all here. So when I see us meeting from all over the world in our different time zones, it's 8 a.m. here in France, it's goodness knows what time in Hawaii, it's evening time in New Zealand, etc., etc. It's like, and then we know that we're separated by thousands and thousands of kilometers, and yet we're not here. And so that sense of actually entering into being here, we find it's a here-ness that can know a great intimacy, an intimacy with just the felt sense of bodily life, but equally an intimacy with the soundscape around us. And for me here in Paris, that means intimacy with sounds of my neighbours getting upstairs. In about 15 minutes, the little girl from upstairs will come down talking to her dad as she goes to school. Intimacy with people crossing the courtyard. And also then that way, that sense of intimacy can be offered outwards, like, opened outwards. So there's a sense of both sharing, making an offering of presence, like just offering our sense of presence out to the world. So the sense of open intimacy, spacious intimacy. And also one of kind of receiving presence from the world, the way the outer, what we call the outer, the sounds around us, the space around us, the sense of other people, where we can sort of let that in, let that sort of permeate our own sense of presence, our own sense of body, so that body can become permeable, mind becomes permeable, self and world interpenetrate with each other. It's called intimacy with the 10,000 things in the tradition. Yeah. And if we look, we can look at our lives and see what are the conditions that foster us relaxing and opening and feeling. They're not just porous in that way, right? But it transforms our relationship with others. When we have that sense of felt intimacy. Right? How we think about others, how we feel towards others is very different than when we're more contracted into a narrow sense of me. And then it's me and my needs, me and my interests, me and my wishes, me and my views. And you can just sense that as well, the way a tight sense of self, a defended sense of self, is made up of what on Monday we were calling constraint and what was it? What was the other con? It was constraint and what was it? Unconstrained and unconcerned. Yeah, constraint and concern. Self-concern. And that's the way most of us are going around our lives, right? Caught up in constraint and concern, in tension and drama, in I, me, and my. So that the world of my experience is mostly filled up with I, me, and my. What am I doing? Where am I going? What do I need? What are they thinking of me? And even if that self-concern is negative, oh, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do that? Oh, it's not fair. Why don't they like me? We can see all of those as what we could call forms of self-importance, even negative self-importance, making I, me, and my too important, too central, takes up too much space. And for most of us, that's so familiar that we don't experience it as tension and drama. We experience it just as me. It seems normal to us. And it seems normal to live with this very solid or real seeming boundary between me and the world, between body and space around. So one of the ways we can really see meditation is as a way of softening that boundary, offering our heart out into the world and simultaneously receiving the world, letting the world in. So as we sit this morning, maybe we can make that our intention. Nothing to defend. We were talking on Monday about unconstrained and unconcerned awareness. So same theme really, but this morning we might call it undefended. The three poisons in the Buddhist tradition, usually translated as greed, hatred, and delusion, which are kind of hardcore terms. I like to call those demand, defense, and disconnect. Right? So greed is that sense of, the way we get demanding. I need it to be like this. I want that to happen, and we fixate on that. It's another form of contraction. Or defense. No, I don't like it. I can't stand it. It shouldn't be like that. Get that away from me. Or just the delusion of disconnect. We just lose ourselves in vague wandering or thinking. We lose ourselves in familiar habits. So we might just evoke the possibility, right, of cultivating a meditation practice, cultivating a sense of presence that is undemanding, undefended, and undistracted. And in the midst of that, of course, various demands seduce your attention, or you get defensive against something, some sound you don't like, some discomfort that starts to happen in meditation, or you get inevitably distracted, disconnected, lost in abstraction. So without making any additional or unnecessary drama about any of that, let that be your practice this morning. Just whatever happens, wherever your mind goes, whatever appears, it's like just when you notice that, As what we normally call, bring my attention back to the breath, or re-establish a sense of being here in a breathing body. And we'll just evoke that sense, okay, to be here in a way that's undemanding, undefended, undistracted. So please take your seat for meditation. So really sense into your posture. Sense of being upright, dignified, awake. And then like softening, resting into your posture, letting your legs be heavy on the floor, letting yourself feel like you can really trust your body to sit, as if you can trust awareness to be here. And relaxing into a naturalness of this breathing body. A naturalness of being aware. Of being here. Here in the breath. Here in the world of dancing sensations. Here in the soundscape. here in this intimacy with experience. here in a way that's expansive. Seeing how you can be both here in the breath, in the breathing, present in the breathing, but in a way that's unconfined. Sense of being here in a way that's open, that permeates outwards. Sense of edgeless presence. And also a way that permeates inwards. No edge and no center. Present really in the midst of experience, in the heart of experience. And this intimacy with experience. Intimacy with the comings and goings. The arising and passing. The in-breath and the out-breath. Here in a way that's undemanding, undefended, undistracted. In this way, everything that arises in your experience can be met. Everything that arises and that passes. what's happening right now. What's here in the field of your attention. And if your attention was caught up in some way, just take a moment to really sense into that. And it's inevitably either some form of demand or defense or distraction. And just see if you can just offer it back to awareness. Just leave it alone, so that it just becomes part of the texture of experience. It's part of the floating and dancing of sensations and sounds and thoughts. So that you can recover a sense of undemanding presence, undefended presence, undistracted presence. Just like this. This is meditation. Mind creates demands, defenses, distractions, and then practice releases those and keeps resetting, re-establishing, reorientating towards being here in a way that's undemanding, undefended, undistracted. So I'm just continuing to practice in this for the remaining, like this, for the remaining 5 minutes or so of the sitting. May we all live with a bright mind and a warm heart. May we all live in an awareness that transcends time and space. May we find our home again and again, more and more, in a presence that's undemanding, undefended, undistracted, open and free. All right. That was meditation, friends. What a good way to start the day. Maybe for some of you, end of the day, when whatever your time zone. So there's a little time. If you have questions, please feel free. A couple of things before that. One is maybe you've seen, it's actually you have to be French speaking for this bit, but I'll say it in English anyway for now. But I'm going to do some pop-up Dharma in Paris on Saturday. There's a kiosque dans le square de la rue. Just at the top of the road here, there's a kind of bandstand in a little park. And so I thought, it's a good place to just gather and meditate and explore the Dharma a little bit. So I'll be there from 10 a.m. to 12 midday on Saturday. And you can see the details if you've on Instagram. Right? So you can find me at Martin Aylward on Instagram, and the address and the timings and everything is there. There's no need to register for anything. You just can show up. And I just thought it's a nice way, because I'm in Paris this weekend, nice way to just connect to the Parisian Dharma family a little bit, sit together, explore together. So, if you're free on Saturday and that sounds interesting, come along. And it's covered, right? So, bring something to sit on, but you won't get wet, hopefully. All right. Quoi d'autre? And then Saturday afternoon, I'll be doing a day of practice here on Sangha Live. So you can hang out with me either way on Saturday, either in French or in English. And I think the title for Saturday afternoon is As If Everything is Sacred. So you'll see the information about that somewhere on in the Sangha Live world, etc. And then lastly, I'll make a very brief reminder of Dana, just the freely offered, freely supported, freely circulating way in which Sangha Live operates. So, I'm trying to support you the best I can. And so does Sangha Live, with all it offers and all that implies, and all the work that takes. And the invitation is, hey, please support us the best you can. And so anything you might wish to offer, be able to offer, anything you do offer, thank you. It's a beautiful thing. And in the moment of making a Dana offering, please just connect with the sense of, that it's an offering, that it's support, that it's a movement of the heart. So thank you in advance. And here comes the link from George. Ding! We've really got the timing for that down well, George. Thank you. All right. Heidi says, my practice keeps circling back to a strong unmet need for meaningful social connection. And I keep working at the letting go. Yeah, I know this patch of life means I have some social isolation and it may change, and it feels as if letting go is strengthening the sense of the need. Now I need to let go of letting go. Okay, so don't worry about letting go, Heidi. I would say much more you need to let it in. Let it be, let it in. What does that mean? It means here's this longing, right? The longing, very human need for longing. Sorry, very human need for contact. So what do you call it? I need a strong unmet need for meaningful social connection. In other words, I'm longing for contact, intimacy, company. Right? There's that unmet need arising, saying, I want some care and attention. I want some contact and love. Right? And then you say, oh no, I've got to let go. I've got to let go. I've got to let go of that. So you're refusing that mind state, the very thing that it wants. It wants care and attention. And you say, oh no, I'm going to let go. Don't let go. Forget letting go. Let it in. Let yourself give some meaningful, what did you call it? Let yourself give some meaningful connection, some loving connection to that sense of loneliness or isolation. Right? Really, really, it's like taking it in as if it's a young, lonely child that just wants to be picked up and given a hug. Oh yeah, I feel lonely and isolated. Or this part of me, this structure feels lonely and isolated, and it wants connection. Please give it some connection. So that's the sort of internal part of that. And then, of course, there's to see. You don't need to just don't just meditate about the longing for connection. Actually, let yourself see what would constitute meaningful social connection. And I don't know where you're living, Heidi, or what might be possible around you, but I think those two things need to go along well. Actually looking for and reflecting on and taking some steps, whether that's joining some kind of group in your area, or whether it's getting on the dating apps or whatever that is. I don't know how meaningful the connections available in the dating apps are, but some of them. And then this inner part of it, which is really about, like I say, giving the sense of loving connection to that unmet need. Yeah. All right. Thanks, George, for posting the promo. Oh, there we are. It's a week of not many questions, it seems, this week. There was a whole huge flurry of questions on Monday, which I didn't manage to get to them all. And since then, not so much. So everything's clear. Okay. Here we go. Sinclair. What advice can you give about supported posture? Some days I have to lie down, but how to have a strong back? I just don't know your situation, Sinclair. I don't know why you have to lie down and whether you've got some kind of medical issue or etc. So if you have, please, if you've got some kind of medical condition, please take care of your posture. Whether that means lying down or whether it means sitting in a supported way. If you need support, you could sit against a wall, for example. What's good, though, is to support your lower back, or sit in a chair with a back, but support your lower back so that rather than your upper back. So you don't slump your shoulders against a wall, right? You support in that little curve in your lower back. You could put a little cushion there. In French, there's little horizontal cushions that you sometimes find. They're called calerin, which means cal is like a chock or a little support, a wedge, and a rein are the kidneys. So those cushions are called calerin, like kidney supports. So one of those, like a cushion that you put in your lower back to support it, and then you can actually have a sense of allowing your lower back to soften and rest. but you still have a feeling of uprightness. So maybe that's helpful for you. But like when you say, I have to lie down, like I said, I don't know what that is. And I don't want to be encouraging you to somehow push against something that if it's a medical condition. Yeah. Lonnie says, I've been extremely involved with the atrocities in Gaza and now in Lebanon. Very difficult not to fill my heart with hatred. I even had a nightmare of a new fascist group taking over. Any suggestion? So I wonder what you mean by very extremely involved, Lonnie. What does that mean? I've been extremely involved with the atrocity. Does that mean you've been reading lots of articles about them? I don't know where you're living. I mean, if you're living in the Middle East, that's a very different sense. Somebody was actually saying alive yesterday, who was sitting with us in Lebanon. So that's a very different sense of being very involved. I don't know where you are, Lonnie, but my answer would depend a little on that. And one of the things, if you're not in the Middle East, if you're here in Europe somewhere and you're very involved in reading a lot and feeling overwhelmed and your heart is filling with hatred, I would say, please read less, really. You know, we have this sense of needing to be informed, needing to be involved, but there's many ways of being involved in the world. And it's not so helpful to be very involved with something about which you can do nothing. Right? Now, you may not agree. I'm not suggesting that you can do nothing about the Middle East, but there are other areas of suffering, maybe much closer to the home, that you can do more about. And so, you know, you open social media, for example, and the first thing might be some just yesterday, first thing that came up, somebody falling in a swimming pool. Haha. Second thing, injured children in war zones. Third thing, some kind of celebrity interview. And then fourth thing, some sales advert. How does one process that kind of incredible, irreconcilable thing from comedy moment to war zone to sales? You know? And somehow, because we have this access to everything in the world, it feels like I need to have a relationship to everything in the world. But that stuff, if the result of that is that it's overwhelming and giving rise to a lot of hatred, I would say, please disengage and look at the suffering around you. Maybe on your way to the local shops, there's a homeless person that you could ask, how are they doing? Where did they sleep last night? Have they had a hot meal today? You know, would they like you to get them anything? And then you have a sense of, here's some suffering you can actually meet. Here's somebody who's in some distressing situation you can actually care for. You can make a difference to. So I think we easily get a distorted sense of what is within our jurisdiction and what is not. And some of the suffering of the world, you know, we may be sensitive to it and caring about it, but if it's outside of our jurisdiction and the effect of it is that it kind of is overwhelming our heart and we're unable to maintain some sense of compassion and care without hardening into hatred, maybe it's not so helpful to take your attention there. All right. What else? Jane says, how do I forgive myself for the anger that keeps coming up in the presence of a narcissistic relative? Well, I'm not sure it's a question of how to, Jane, right? I think it's more just a dwelling with, right? So recognizing, oh, here's this difficult person, and when I'm in contact with them or even think about them, I feel angry. Okay, so in a way, it's like getting used to the anger without feeding the story of it, the story will still come up. How could they say that? Why are they like that? But instead of just feeding the story of that, just letting yourself actually feel, oh, wow, this person really gets me going. I can feel the heat, the bubbling, the thoughts of kind of, attack or revenge, or blame. I can see how I get really invested in that. I really want to blame them, etc. Wow. And then you feel, what does that do to me? It makes me tense, makes me agitated. And you just get used to that with as much tenderness and simplicity and non-blame towards yourself as possible. And what you'll find is then that the anger becomes more malleable. You recognize it when it comes, and you don't need to get into it as much, to buy into the story as much. And that will mean it will come and go more quickly, it will be less sticky when it comes. And when it's less sticky, then you feel you don't just take it so seriously, and that sense of kind of forgiveness happens by itself. And I know that might be making it sound easier than the process might be, but hey, it's like that. Everything's easier said than done. So that would be my encouragement, to make a little room for the anger. You don't, forgiveness isn't a light switch. That's how do I forgive? Oh, you do this and then you forgive yourself, right? And actually mostly comes from familiarity with what's there and as much tenderness as you can manage towards what's with. Yeah. And then Claire says, on Monday you talked about being unconcerned. And can you talk about the difference between unconcern and clocking out? I was talking about self-concern, Claire. Unconstrained and unconcerned with I and me and my. So we can be concerned in a regular sense. Plenty of things we need to be concerned with, right? But I was using concern in that particular way of kind of self-obsession, basically. And if we're honest, most of our concerns are self-obsessive. And so even the example you give, right, the climate crisis needs a lot of concern, definitely, right? But again, what is within your jurisdiction? Here's the climate crisis. I'm very concerned about it. What can I do? Actually, what can I do? I can't do everything that I would like to. I can't solve all the world's problems. I also can't do nothing, because I feel, the heart cares. There's this compassion. I want to, so I can't do everything and I can't do nothing. What can I do? And that's not an easy question, but it's a very important one. To be clear about one's own sphere of possibility, and then to actually engage. What seems to you, this is what I can do. And in the process, you might check how much of that is actual real engagement with the climate crisis, which also will depend on your area of skill and your networks, what can you actually do, and how much of it actually, even though you're thinking about the climate crisis, how much of it actually is self-concern. And it actually circles back. I'm worried about the climate crisis, but actually when I really check in, it's coming back to my fear, my anxiety, my worry about what might happen to me, etc. So some of our anxiety about the climate crisis, of course, it's not to dismiss the realness and the urgency and the importance of attending to, the terrible way we're, treating our environment, etc. But a lot of our anxiety about it, if we really check in, it's actually undigested anxiety about our own mortality. So I just leave that with you to check and explore and see for yourself. All right, friends, thank you for your presence and your practice and your good questions, wide-ranging questions, challenging questions. I hope some of the responses were helpful. If some of my responses seem unhelpful or unattuned or whatever, please feel free to just let them go by. Some of these bigger questions, answering them in a general context like this is a little tricky sometimes. But I'm glad I can hear you, Lonnie, saying that you found that helpful. So glad to hear. Please go gently through the day, friends, and see you tomorrow. Thank you.